Are you wanting to buy assets that generate income, but you're not really sure how to buy those assets? In this video, I'm going to be talking about how to buy assets that generate income. It's something that we started exploring about 15 years ago when we decided that we weren't going to rely just on stocks and bonds, the traditional investing model, as we pass through midlife. Hi, I'm Camille Gaines, and I write about building wealth after 50 and creating multiple streams of income ahead of retirement at retirecertain.com. In this video, I do want to talk about how to buy assets that generate income, because I remember what it was like trying to figure all this out. It's pretty easy to figure out how to buy, dividend stocks in your brokerage account or whatever. But when you start looking a little more alternative, it gets a little more complicated. So the very first thing, and I often say this, I always say this, go back to your overall wealth plan. What is it that you want to have in your life? What is it that you want to create in your life? How much money do you need to make? Because where you really start with this is figuring out what kind of assets you want to buy. And then from that, you'll, that will sort of lead this into how to buy those assets, because buying, for example, a piece of real estate is going to be completely different from buying high dividend stocks or buying an online business, for example. So the first thing is to sort of figure out what it is that you want to generate income, what kind of asset, what appeals to you, and what works for you from a strategy standpoint, a financial standpoint, and a lifestyle standpoint. So that's what we'll sort of ease into, and then we'll talk about how you can actually buy those assets, talk about financing and cash and that kind of thing. So clarify first how much income you want to get and whether or not a capital gain is important to you in with this particular investment, this asset that pays you income. So by that I mean you're going to receive the income from owning it, but are you also really wanting to be able to sell it later on for a capital gain, which builds wealth? Income pays us income to live, and capital gains build wealth, usually over time. So what is your goal around that? What is your goal for this income generating asset? Then the next thing to consider is how much of your capital do you want to allocate toward purchasing income generating assets? Do you want to just buy one income generating asset, or do you want to diversify and buy several different income generating assets? Diversification is always an excellent way to lower investment risk, so it makes a lot of sense. So think about how much money you have, how much of your money you want to allocate to income generating assets, and how many you want to own, and don't take any beyond the initial research. Then the next factor to consider is, are you using that same capital for growth as you're using for income? Let me explain that a little bit more. So do you have a separate portfolio somewhere, maybe a retirement account, an IRA, something that you've set aside to say, I'm going to stick this money into stocks, and over the next couple of decades I think it will grow, toward that long-term average of around 10% annually. That's total return. Or do I need to use the same money? I only have X amount of dollars and I want to use the same money toward income generation as I do for building wealth. So that's going to sort of shape the amount of capital that you have to buy assets that generate income. And then the next focus is whether or not you want to be in alternative investments or if you want to be in traditional investments. Some people are really uncomfortable going beyond, high dividend paying stocks, even into MLPs or REITs, which are only, I call them slightly alternative investments. Whereas other people are like, bring it on. I've done all this other stuff for years and I'm not where I want to be. I want to buy some rental properties, or I want to start an online business. I want to, or maybe in this case, it would be buy an online business that's generating income. But I want to go alternative. I want to go outside of very traditional investments. So think about whether you want to be really traditional in your income generating assets, or do you want to go more alternative, and how alternative do you want to go? Then the very next step is to define how much risk you're willing to take, because some of these income generating assets are obviously going to be a lot riskier than others are. And so by defining that ahead of time, you can really not be a victim of risk. Like a lot of people feel like a victim of the stock market, but by defining how much risk you're willing to take, you're not a victim of the stock market or the real estate cycle or the economy or whatever it is. So get really clear about, hey, at this age, I would be okay if I lost this much money in in an endeavor, while none of us want to lose money, is a reality of investing. Even in stocks, we know they're going to go down every few years, once or twice a decade, because we have bear markets, right? So it's a reality of it. So how much risk are you comfortable with for your age and in this project to purchase assets that will generate income for you? And then the next factor is how much do you want to diversify? And so I mentioned that by buying more than one asset, you're diversifying, but then do you want to go outside of traditional investments and also have a diversification let me rephrase it. Yeah. Diversification within traditional investments like stocks, bonds, that kind of thing, and or do you want to have diversification with stocks and bonds, but then also going outside that to something that's more alternative, like real estate, as an income generating asset? And then the next thing to consider is whether or not you are an accredited investor or non-accredited investor. And that will help you know what investments you'll qualify for. Certain particularly income generating investments that you'll see are limited only to accredited investors. And the next thing to look at, again, is how much time do you want to allocate to managing these income generating assets? Do you want to just have it in your brokerage account where you get the dividend income, or do you want to have real estate rentals where you can either delegate management or you can sort of be the person to take care of it? Or do you want to have something that, a company that you buy, a small business that you buy, or an online business that you buy, that you're actively involved in turning around and having it generate income? And then after that's done and you've got it going, how much time do you want to spend managing it? So that's something really important to consider. Then the next thing to consider, super important, is will you have tax consequences if you have to withdraw some of your money to put into or purchase these income producing assets? Will you have tax consequences from that? So be sure to check with your CPA and see, sometimes we can think we have this capital, but then, if we use that, then we're going to run into this tax situation. So think about taxes and how that may affect the income generating assets that you purchase, or the capital that you have to purchase those assets. And then the next thing that I'll mention is doing the research. That's the very next step, is just spending a lot of time researching. And then when you're ready to buy your income generating assets, there are three major ways to purchase them. The first one is the simplest, and that's simply with cash. And so if you have the capital that you want to apply to this, you may want to not finance it. That will certainly increase your cash flow from this income generating asset. And so that's the very, first and easiest way to purchase an asset, of course. The next thing is with financing. And financing, may take the form of financing through a bank or more traditional lender. Nowadays, financing is available through many online platforms. And then the third way of purchasing this asset, income generating asset, is from leverage, using leverage. And something like that may be buying a piece of real estate and making a down payment of, 25, 40, 50%, whatever you choose to make based on the numbers in your credit score, and, handling it that way. So really the process is about figuring out what it is you want, and in doing that, you're going to see what your options are and how you can purchase those income generating assets. So that's what I wanted to share with you in this video. If you found this information helpful, please give me a thumbs up below the video, subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of my other videos. I appreciate your watching.